Welcome. I hope you've all managed to slide onto the show on time. I'm wearing my Lord's Taverner's tie this evening. I suppose out of respect for the members' meeting, but also the fact that it's 365 days since I last wore a tie. So I thought a rather nice moment to put it back on. So very warm welcome to you all to tonight's members' meeting. And it's fantastic that so many of you can join us for this update on all things happening with our charity. Now, we have a pretty packed schedule. If you have any questions through the evening, please use the Q&A function. I'm sure you all know what that is. We've had a few questions in advance, and we'll do our best to answer them as we go through the evening and weave them in if we can. But in order to keep to time, if we can tonight, that we may be taking some of those questions post-event and giving you a personal response in days to come. Please ensure if you have got a question that you give us your full name when asking the question, because often when people's details come on a screen on Zoom, you either get iPad that comes up or Dick's phone or something. So that's no good. We want your name. We want to know who you are so we can get back to you if we don't take your question on the air. We'll also be recording the meeting for those who couldn't attend here tonight. There've been many messages from members saying how much they'd really love to come tonight, but they just can't make it. I don't know what they're doing. There's nothing to do, is there, at the moment still? But anyway, we will be recording it and they will get a chance to see it as well. Now, hopefully many of you would have seen the charity's latest impact report. It was published last week and it showcases the life-changing work of our programs. And last year, despite the pandemic, with your support, we empowered more than 12,000 young people on our cricket programs. And to explain more about the programs and how they've had to adapt during lockdown, I'd like to welcome Pete Ackerley, who is the chairman, as I'm sure you all know, of the Charitable Programs Committee. Pete, over to you.
Thank you, Chris, and a very good evening to everybody. We're joined this evening by Rohan Randhawa and Nauman Javed, who are both employed full-time to deliver our Lord Taverner's programmes. Nauman is our Wickets Development Officer in Glasgow. They've been working with us since early 2019. Has already had a great impact in several areas of Glasgow, not only working for the young people and working for them, but also for the wider community in the Springburn, Pollux Shields and Govan Hill areas of Glasgow. Rohan is our Disability Development Officer in Yorkshire and is responsible for the running of both our Super Ones and our table cricket programmes in the region. He's been pivotal to developing disability cricket across Yorkshire through setting up 8 Super One hubs, expanding the table cricket offer and building a pathway from our programmes, from our Lord Taverner's disability programmes through to the disability county teams in Yorkshire. Welcome, Nauman and Rohan. Very warm welcome. So Nauman, first to yourself. Tell us about Wickets. Tell us all about it.
Thank you so much for inviting me here today. Really honored and really grateful. So basically, Wickets is a program that targets young people from the age of 18 to 19 in areas of deprivation. We use cricket as a tool for social inclusion, and we also provide them with life skill and awareness workshops on prevailing social issues in the society. We equip them with confidence so that they can make some positive choices in life. That's Wickets in a nutshell.
Okay. So why Wickets and why would it be needed in Glasgow? Or in your particular areas of Glasgow?
Being honest, there are literally no opportunities for the kids living in these areas of deprivation like Springburn, Govan Hill and Pollux Shields. When I came in, I actually saw there were no spaces for kids to play, no places where kids can hang around with friends and mingle around with their friends. So the only places left were the streets. And definitely because they came from so deprived backgrounds, the cost was a barrier. They could hire halls where they can go play with their friends, mingle with their friends, yes, just let their energy out somewhere. So what they did was just running about in the streets, disturbing different shopkeepers. And so Wickets has actually managed to change their lifestyles. We have provided them with avenues where they can come, they can all play, they can just release their energy, they can learn a skill that is cricket, and also learn few other things that are related to cricket, not only cricket but related to their life, which can help them out in their future. It also helps them in their careers. When I joined Wickets, and when I was assigned this task, so I saw that the parents, because most of the parents, they work at different hours, they were not able to discuss many things with their kids. They were just dropping them to school, picking them up. There was not much of a conversation between parents and their children. What
Yeah.
I did was I spoke to the parents. You need to speak to your kids, so you need to know what they're doing. So now they've actually started to talk to kids that how was their cricket session. And the kids have started to respond. uh, that's why Wicket was needed in these areas. We had a problem of obesity, especially in parents. So I tried to educate them, the guys, you come here, you drop your kids, you go back home, or you're sitting in the car with a telephone at your ear. Why can't you just walk around the block, just have a 15-20 minute walk? So they listened. This idea actually was successful, and we managed to open a parents tea party club in Pollock Shields, which is still a success. And it gave them more prospects of a future. They started to know that Wickets is not only a community club or a community cricket session holder which comes here for 2 hours a week. It is actually there for the community.
So, so what I'm hearing is I can see over that 18-month period, you've engaged them through cricket and you've engaged the young people, and then you've
Yeah.
started to engage a wider family and community into that area. And so it's Wickets doesn't really just isn't about the participants and the young people, is it? It's much wider than that. And I know some of the work and the impact that you've been making. Please tell everybody some of those wider stories and the impact you've made, particularly during the incredibly challenging times that we've had socially and economically in the area. And please tell everybody some of those success stories.
Wickets is now what I see because I've been here for nearly 2 years and 2.5 or 3 months. What I have started to feel, I feel really proud when I wear this kit, Lord Taverner's Wicket. I've started to feel that this is part of my skin. I'll be very honest. So Wickets is known by the community. People have actually Wickets is a brand. If you come to Glasgow, if you talk to people, Wickets has become a brand. People know that Wickets is not only here for 2 hours a week. Wickets is there for the community to help out. So we have this managed to engage. We have managed to engage about nearly 150 kids throughout the pandemic. We used Zoom calls, we used workshops, we used WhatsApp calls, and it has actually helped. With when we started our sessions, people used to come and see that we are this bunch of 23 kids just running about with a bat and a ball. What are they doing? So they used to stand and they used to watch us. And when we started to deliver life skill workshops, which is actually unheard of, people have not never heard of this thing, that at a cricket session a university student has come and talking about different careers. So people have started to uh, recognize the work that we have done, the services that we have provided, and which led to which I see and which led to different businesses watching us, and they have donated some money to us as well. And the list of partners have just grown and grown and grown. If I sit here and watch the list, it has, my God, it has increased from 5 to like 28. So this is what Wickets has done in the past 18 months.
And just before we move on to talk about with Rohan, so some quite lovely anecdotes of some of the stuff that you personally have done and how you have grown over those 18 months. And please share with you, and if it's not, otherwise I will. You've made a great impact on some parents who've been through some pretty challenging times in those last 12 months, particularly with COVID and furlough and people losing their jobs. So please tell everybody some of the things that you've been able to do.
Pete, ever since we were all young, we have heard a phrase that's necessity is the invention. Sorry, necessity is the mother of invention. So this pandemic has thrown us back to the dark ages. I mean, we couldn't meet people, but thank God we had technology. We could use WhatsApp, we could use Zoom, and with which I have managed to be in touch with nearly all the parents. I mean, I used to call each and every family, every minimum at least in a fortnight. So I had an idea that what kind of hardships they are going through. I've had parents who lost their jobs during this pandemic, and touch wood, thank God, we from Wickets we have managed to arrange employment for about five families, which I think was a great achievement. There were small businesses like Strawberry Garden who gave us free food parcels. We from Wickets in Glasgow, we have managed to deliver 578 food parcels to 125 families. We have managed. I've got few laptops from Cricket Scotland, which will be given to the kids who have actually helped out during this pandemic. We have generated employment. We gave in rain jackets because we were playing outside in the winters. So there was a business by the name of ABS. They have given us free rain jackets and raincoats for the kids. We got free fruit because we promote healthy eating. We got free water from one of our partners. We have delivered 7 to 8 workshops which were on vitamin D deficiency, which were on type 2 diabetes, which were on climate change, renewable energy. So that's what we have done. I mean, that's what we have managed to do. We have even lined up few workshops with Police Scotland. We have lined up few workshops with the first aid with Red Cross. We have trained SLA students. When this happened, I was mind boggled. I said, "Oh my God, what I'm going to do?" But then we used this technology, and we were in constant contact. And I gave responsibilities to kids that they need to identify the deprived families in their areas, and they really worked. And I was the one. I used to drive like 5 hours a day, delivering food parcels to all the needy families during the holy month of Ramadan, and during the last year in June, July, August. We have delivered up to 120 food parcels to 125 families. That's what we have done here.
Well, Nauman, and from everybody, a huge thank you to you personally, to all of everything and everybody who's been impacting on that program. And I think everybody can now see this is not just a cricket program. This is a community program. It's the impact you've had on health and well-being and education and families and communities. So from myself as chair of charitable programs and from the Lord's Taverners, enormous thank you. I, like you, are very proud to be associated with the Lord's Taverners, and a phenomenal impact. And I hope that's had a small flavour of the work that Wickets is doing in many areas around the country. So thank you, Nauman. I'll now move on to Rohan. Good evening, Rohan.
Hi there, are you okay?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good,
and it's almost one of those like follow that.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. It's amazing.
It is amazing. And I know from my role within cricket and within sport, the massive impact that the Taverners programs are having, and particularly within the disability cricket world. So for those that are a little less familiar, could you summarize a little bit about what Super Ones actually is?
Yeah, sure. Similar to the Wickets project, it's a national program for ages 12 to 25, and the program started in London back in 2013 in the London boroughs. It's now in over 20 counties, and the basis of the program is that we create community hubs, and they bridge the gap sort of between schools and mainstream clubs, because what we find is that there is quite a bit of disability provision within the school, but when they leave the school, there isn't that many options, and particularly in cricket. So for some of our participants who don't feel comfortable to go straight to a mainstream club, the Super Ones is just a perfect little space for them to be themselves and to play with some of the participants who have similar disabilities to them also, which makes them feel a lot more comfortable and keep coming back, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much, and so from where I see it, it's very much about empowering those young people and empowering and it's a massive impact on it's not just in terms of the cricket and a health and activity. It's much wider than that, isn't it?
Of course, and particularly now in COVID times, we were lucky a little bit like Naman with the Wickets that we got about 5 of our hubs online out of 8. And that was really crucial to some of our participants because there was a few really struggling with the mental health problems, with loneliness being, a major one as well, not being able to see their friends. And some of our participants with learning difficulties, it really, really hits them a lot harder than, any of their friends in sort of mainstream schools. And, even myself being sort of a young upbeat lad, it's been, at times pretty difficult for myself, and I'm sure everybody else on this call. So if you can imagine for a young disabled person who might not have too many friends, as it is, the Super One sort of online sessions that we've been able to put on has been really, really crucial to not just the kids, but also their parents and their families, for the young children to have that outlet, really.
So in terms of Super Ones, and I know and I've seen many times the huge impact that yourself and your colleagues are having. That it doesn't just include Super Ones; it's also including table cricket as well. And so, for a county like Yorkshire, a strong tradition of being a Lancastrian, we're quite rivaled. But in terms of Lancashire and Yorkshire, there's a great affinity between the disability programs. But how important is Super Ones and table cricket for a county on somewhere like Yorkshire?
It's just absolutely crucial. I can't stress how crucial it is. Before we actually had the Super Ones program and the table cricket come to our county, there weren't many sort of disability options for young people across the county, really. A lot of disability cricket was very ad hoc. It was not here or there. We didn't really have any particular structure. The Super Ones and the table cricket program has provided that structure. It's provided that sustainability that's needed for, young disabled people across the county to be able to come and access a disability offer that, they wouldn't be able to have otherwise. So, without it, we wouldn't have been able to change as many lives as we have, and we won't be able to change as many lives as we're hoping to do in the future. And it's not just the young people, who we're targeting, part of our program. You're also changing their families' lives, their parents' lives, and everybody, around them. And I know Naman will vouch for this as well. Once you have one of these young people engaged in your programs, the wider impact that it has on, everybody around them is absolutely crazy. I mean, I get at least a couple of phone calls a week from parents sort of saying, this has been, without this, I don't know what we would have done. I really don't know what we would have done. He would have been sat in his room, locked away, not been talking to anybody. But, I'm so glad that we found the Lord's Taverners programs.
So, so your role is incredibly far-reaching. It's not just about cricket, and so how does the role work? So between just Lord's Taverners and the Yorkshire Cricket Board. So so how does that actually work? So people can understand that.
Yes, so I'm employed by the Yorkshire Cricket Board, but the role is funded solely by the Lord's Taverners. So I kind of wear 2 hats, really. And I'm very privileged to wear 2 of those hats because I've got a fantastic team that I work with the Lord's Taverners who support me to, deliver the programs in Yorkshire. And I work for a fantastic county like the Yorkshire, Yorkshire County Cricket Club, where, my office is at Headingley. So, it couldn't really be sort of a better mix, really. Working for both 2 amazing organisations who's helped support disability sport around the county, really.
Yeah, and it doesn't end there in terms of your role. So you've signed up for the Three Peaks Challenge. You're doing even more than just delivering disability cricket in Yorkshire. How's the training and the preparation going for the big challenge?
Yeah, going well. I do love my walking, so it's quite enjoyable. My colleague from the Lord's Taverners, Heidi Coleman, who is in charge of running the Three Peaks event, she is looking for people to join us as well. I'm looking for people to join us. So, if you fancy challenging yourself to the Yorkshire Three Peaks at the back end of July, and also hearing about sort of the programs that we do in Yorkshire whilst you're walking 12 hours with myself, I might annoy you a little bit, but I'll try not to. Please go onto the Lord's Taverners website and have a look at taking on that challenge with us, because you're not just paying to do the Three Peaks. That money that you're paying towards going to Three Peaks is going to our programs and going towards changing the lives of those young people that I was referring to earlier.
Well, I'm going to join you. But so all those young people. So what does it actually mean to those young people who are part of Super One? So just give us a flavour, a case study, a role of something like that.
it means absolutely everything. I mean, I could give you 100 case studies for some of our participants because every story is unique. But you know, a couple that I'll mention here. One, we've got one of our coaches at a couple of our hubs. He's called Louis Speet, and he is a wheelchair user who really, before he started coaching for our Super Ones program, didn't have any possibility of work. He tried so many places. He applied for hundreds of jobs who kept turning him down because of his disability. Nobody would give him that chance or that opportunity. And, you know, the Lord's Taverners Super Ones program is all about giving opportunities, not just to participants, but, you know, to coaches and other young people as well involved in the program. So he's now coaching on two of our hubs, and he's actually in a paid coaching role. Whereas before that would have been, you know, way beyond his wildest dreams. I know he's built his experience up, and now he's looking to go up the coaching ladder and, you know, and progress himself even further. Another one I'd like to talk about as well is, I'm sure that some of the members will know and have seen Kean James's face on a few bits of Lord's Taverners marketing as well, and he's one of our participants in York. And you know, before he came to us, you know, he was very open, and his grandma was very open about speaking about his mum who had drug and alcohol problems, which created real major anger issues for Kean. And he didn't have an outlet really to get that out of his system, and he didn't have many friends in school. And you know, he's come to our programs, and honestly, he's an absolute changed young man, really changed young man. He's come out of his shell, and he's taken again a bit of a leadership role at our sessions. I think he raised somewhere around £35,000 earlier in the summer for the Lord's Taverners Isolate program as well, with his story, which again is an amazing achievement. He got an award at the Lord's Taverners Awards at Lord's. I think it was a couple of years ago now. Again, so very, very proud of him. And you know, again, like I said earlier, that every single participant on our program has got a story, and the Taverners program has affected their lives in a positive way. And anybody on the program will tell you that, and any parent involved with the program will tell you the same thing as well.
Well, Rohan, Naman, and all in your program, we can't thank you enough for everything you do, and I'm not going to try and add anything to that. The story speaks for itself. The difference you make is outstanding. Thank you for sharing that, and I think and hope that everybody out there will have been impacted by those stories. So thank you both very much, and Rohan, I'll see you on the peaks.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pete.
Back to you, Chris.
Thank you. Cheers.
We'll keep you to that, Pete. We won't forget that. And thank you, guys. That was terrific. Lovely to hear a bit more about Wickets and Super Ones. Let's zoom off to our wonderful regions. I'm actually quite proud to tell you now that I've just been appointed co-chairman of the West Kent region of the Lord's Taverners. I was president, so I don't know whether I've been promoted or demoted. But there we are, who cares? To the regions, let's just say that at the heart of the Lord's Taverners are our volunteer regions, and we're delighted to be joined by the chairs of regions, Tracy Warrington and Ed Meggett, to hopefully give us an update as to what's been happening across the country, and of course plans for the future. Welcome both. Hope you're both well.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, all well, thanks.
Good, but we can't ask that question anymore. Everyone's fed up with that question. Ed, let's start with you and start with the positive news that many of our regions are starting to plan events once again.
Yeah, Chris, it's really, really exciting. I think like lots of parts of society, there's actually, you can see some light at the end of the tunnel now. And actually looking at the regions, we've got events which are scheduled, which is great, and I think there's a real excitement in the regions actually getting out there, doing what we really do well. I think, having said that, nobody underestimates the challenge, because I think, you know, given the sort of COVID period, there's a need to reconnect with members and supporters who've kind of got out of the habit of attending events. It's quite naturally been off the radar. People have been focusing on different things. So I think that's an important challenge. And I think similarly, you know, in terms of actually the key sponsors, you know, just sort of re-energizing that, and also our committee members, you know, in terms of new and old, fantastic across the region. But actually, it's a new world there for COVID to actually, you know, get everybody revved up to embrace it. But it's a challenge we can face and embrace, and we will do it.
But you sense that live events are coming back, Ed?
I think we do, and yeah, very much so. And I think it's the nature of the event is going to be a real sort of challenge. You know, what can we do? How do we manage it? How do we implement it? What type of venue is going to be appropriate? And I think that's where there'll be sort of a link between HQ and actually gathering experience across the UK, because that's going to be quite fluid as well, actually, to think what's going to work and what isn't going to work. But it's I think that is our sense. I think, Tracy, it's fair to say we're certainly planning for that, and that's what's going on, you know, across the regions.
Yeah. Tracy, tell us about some of the challenges. I mean, it's been a tough year for everybody, but tell us some of the challenges that face the committees and the regions.
Well, it's true. Our regions have certainly faced many challenges since March 2020. As you know, well, some of the regions were actually hosting their first events spring last year. From March onwards, there could have been spring lunches, golf days, etc. And they've had to postpone those events. And at that time, we thought, you know, it would be just merely postponed. Little did we know that the whole calendar of events would be completely wiped out. There were many important common themes across the country in terms of how venues and hotels were operating. Chairs and their committees had to rearrange their dates, rearrange the venues, rearrange their speakers, and of course, look at refund policies, etc. They also needed to find that confidence to commit to future events and obviously positively put dates in the calendar for 2021. We were lucky we have a team from head office, including Ed and myself, which we were conducting Zoom meetings with our chairs and their committees. So we've had some positive feedback with regards to these meetings, which are still ongoing, and loving that word, re-energizing and reconnecting with our regions and our chairs and committee members. So everybody has a voice, and we're here to listen to that voice, moving forward in a very softly positive approach.
Yeah. No, it's the only thing we can do, isn't it? Ed, it looks like the impact of COVID may mean a new way of operating in what could be a new landscape to adjust to. What sort of support are you able, or are we able to give to the regions?
The support will definitely be there, because as I touched on at the outset, I think there is a new landscape, and what we can produce, what we're able to do, it may be fluid, it may change. And I think from Tracy and myself, but it also particularly from HQ, they're very alert to the challenges that will be out there. And I think there'll be ongoing dialogue, really important to do that with this new landscape. And I think it's also sharing experiences as well, because historically we might have had traditional sponsors who would have sponsored an event, raffles, prizes. Well, I think we need to recognize that the businesses have had many challenges, and we might need to think about ones we would have normally taken for granted to actually sponsor certain events, might actually think, hang on, we might need to stand back for a year or so. So it may be that we need to sort of think what the right message is across the patch, really, just to get a consistent theme to try and get them back to the Taverners brand. And it's a great brand we got. We know it's a first-class product that we put on across the country, across the regions, and that sort of brand that the Taverners have in terms of the quality of events and the fun people have there. We can sell it. It's just getting those habits back, really.
Yeah, you mentioned the word dialogue. Tracy, the communication is key. What plans possibly do you have in place to really communicate everything well to the regions? Are you still with us, Tracy?
Well, as mentioned, we've been obviously adapting to the COVID scenario. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, sorry. With regards to the situation and ongoing. With regards to the COVID situation, we're still carrying on with the Zoom meetings, which are, as I said before, are proving to be incredibly popular. Like I said, everybody's things that they may have, chairs and committee members. We've got a great team at head office. Maria has promised to keep our regions fully informed with and up to date with all our programmes. Within their respective regions. We've got minibuses pending and ongoing applications, so they'll be fully informed of anything that's going on like that. We've still got Rachel bring any needed administration support within the regions, as we did before. So
I think we might just be losing you on and off, Tracy.
she'll be helping with flyers or anything. Oh.
We're just losing you a little bit, but it's okay. I think we got the gist of that, and the communication is absolutely vital. But we heard most of that, and Ed, thanks very much, Tracy, for your input there. And Ed, just to finish up with you, do you feel that the relationship between headquarters and the regions is a strong one and can get stronger?
It can get stronger, definitely, but I think the HQ, there's a balance in terms of regions know their patch, they know the contacts, and they know what works, what events work locally, and kind of Tracy and I know that we've both been regional chairs, and you sort of you know your areas, but it's really important to have that connection with HQ so that there's a sort of consistency from a national level. You feel as though there's support there as well, because there might be some issues that you need to unlock. I think one really nice initiative that's come up recently is the concept of a trustee buddy, which we've seen in the last sort of 6 months or so. The trustees were at the regional conference at most of the sessions, which was well received, and each region is going to be assigned a buddy, which will be one of the trustees. And it's not to replace the normal lines of contacts with HQ. It's really there as an additional level of support in terms of someone with experience, just knowing that the regions have got a voice at a senior level where somebody might be able to unlock a problem, raise an issue. But I think it's an illustration of what HQ want to do in terms of actually, we're there to support. So I think, that's hopefully gonna be really positive going forward. And I think, what Tracy and I want to emphasize is it's exciting times, I think, Chris, going forward. It's been a tricky old year, but I think the whole Taverners brand is massive. The club ethos is really important in terms of what the Taverners is all about. It's part of the whole DNA of the charity, and we really see the regions are a huge part of that for the charity, and I think that comes from certainly us as chairs of the regions, and I think from HQ to actually recognize the importance that the regions play massively as they're sort of the eyes and ears on the ground, really, in terms of what the charity does. So it's challenge to come, but it's really exciting, and I think everyone's really looking forward to getting out there, having a glass of wine, talk a bit of nonsense, and raise a few quid while we're at it.
Some things never change at the Taverners. Ed and Tracy, thanks for your amazing hard work, and thanks for presenting that to us. Sounds all really positive, which is what we need at the moment. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, so why don't we sort of head to the middle now? And I can't think of any better cricketing Taverners to share the next half hour with than our two special guests tonight. If you were to go on tour, you would love to share a dinner table with these two. Mike Gatting to deal with the menu, of course, and David Gower to the wine list, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, two great players, two great Taverners, and two great guys, Mike Gatting and David Gower. Welcome, guys.
Evening, Cal. How are you?
Yes, yeah. Well, that's the question. Should we still ask it?
Well, should we still ask it? It's always nice to find out everybody's well and fit and raring to go.
How is our president over there?
Very good evening, all. I suppose you could just shorten the question nowadays to "Are you?"
Yeah. Well, we all are.
Well, good. And loved your introduction as ever. Polished, urbane, almost accurate. I mean, inviting people out to dine with the legend that is Mike Gatting. comes with inevitable risks, as we all know.
It didn't take you long, did it?
It never takes either of you very long, but never mind. I've got used to it.
No, but Gat, I'm very much on your side here, because I want to make a point that you and I are both greatly honoured to have been former presidents of the Lord's Taverners. We drove up and down the country, we visited all the regions, we went to hundreds of events every year, and I'm not so sure that our new current president's even been to an event yet.
Well, I have to say, he's certainly missing out on lots of red wine, but I mean, it's one of those sort of things that he doesn't often do, because I know his favourite wine is a Lynch Barge, which is a very, 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 very nice wine. But I haven't seen him drink any of it recently, but I'm sure he'll get round to it at some stage as the sort of events starting to sort of trickle through, hopefully, latter part of the year.
You were very generous to him.
Yeah, indeed you are. No, you're absolutely right. I have so far described my presidency as completely uneventful. And no one can argue with that. We did manage to get some cricket matches last year, and Mike and I, as two of the world's finest amateur umpires, certainly laid down the law more than once. I'm very proud of one of my decisions at Wormsley against the Authors, where this guy, he'd made 50 or so, he was looking very super confident. In fact, looking decidedly overconfident, and he just had to go. It was a 50-50 LBW, probably going over the top, which he told me afterwards, but he had to go. The finger was raised, and that is that. But one of our eminent players, you'll all be familiar with the legend that is Gordon Kennedy, who I was on the email to just a moment ago while I was waiting for my chance here. Gordon, I mean, I can't, I mean, I have to give it out when Gordon appeals. You know, we have to look after our Scottish neighbours. Yeah, at this time where things like union are all important to all of us, and unity is all important to all of us, I just find it's great fun supporting our players, obviously with a hint of legality about it.
But also, you haven't talked about your player. Gat, actually, I'm going to ask Gat, because you both went on tour with the Taverners to South Africa, and amazingly, he actually played, didn't he? Having said he'd never play again.
Hang on, both of us played.
I know Gat, but I've seen Gat play for years for the Tavs.
But it was quite special. He had a net the night before, actually. We were entertained very, very, very royally and regally at a very nice house in Cape Town, and they had a lawn out the front, and David had a few nets. I declined, thinking I wasn't going to play, but David had a little sort of 5 minutes on the lawn, which was quite amusing, and it was a lovely day the following day, but I was persuaded somehow to get the pads on, as was David, and they had one of these very strange bowlers called Mr. Adams, who came on, the frog in the blender, if you remember, played for South Africa.
Well, and it just took me to get the hubcap off the car.
That's right, and he actually played, and I was umpiring with David, and I have to say, I saw this guy whacking the ball, and it went miles out of the ground. And I have to say, I thought, well, I know this guy. Who is he? I was trying to rack my brain, because as you get older, you lose it. And all of a sudden, as we came off, they said, that was Adams, the bowler. I said, the bowler? He whacks it that far? I mean, these were going out the ground. It was quite a long way. And then sadly, I had to follow David out to bat, and he played a very majestic knock. I managed to get one off the square just before I actually edged one to sort of deep gully off Mr. Adams. I hadn't done my homework very well, because apparently all he does really bowl is left arm orthodox, as opposed to what you normally get with Chinaman and Googly most of the time, which is they come in as off spin, but he bowled most of his were leg breaks. Did
D.I. Gower get any?
He looked very, very comfortable, as you would expect out in the middle. He got a number, and we both enjoyed it.
Can I just tell you both?
What was that number?
Can I just tell the audience at large, knowing we have thousands of people hanging on every word, that both scores were in single figures. Let's not make it worse than that. Both scores were in single figures. I was just starting to enjoy it, actually, after 30 years without picking up a bat. But the game is cruel. As all our playing members know, the game is a cruel game. The inside edge onto the off stump is enough to see you back in the pavilion, where, of course, all you can do is sulk and then have another beer and get on with life.
It was that first ball that everybody was quite worried about, David, as you know, when you're facing that first ball.
Let's move on. Okay, it's enough.
Actually, to be fair,
we haven't got all night. Jeff, go on.
No, to be fair, Cal, the main reason we went out there was to promote table cricket. And it was a magnificent effort by the people out there to promote the table cricket on top of Table Mountain.
Brilliant.
And it was a fantastic time. And I'm pleased to say that we managed to get some new schools interested out there for the South African arm of the Taverners. And that was the main reason we were out there. And as I say, I'm looking forward to seeing all the new table cricket kit that we've got coming through. Hopefully be with us by the end of the year.
Great stuff. Well, you've been somewhere else, of course, recently, David. You've had a little trip to Pakistan. What was that all about?
That was carefully contrived to somehow escape this insert adjective lockdown. I was invited at the last moment to go and join the commentary team for the PSL, the Pakistan Super League, with luminaries such as Alan Wilkins, Dominic Cork, Simon Dool, Danny Morrison, Bazin Khan, and Amar Sahel, a former adversary when we used to play Pakistan in the 80s. So popping out to do T20 cricket was not entirely novel, but Sky had always tried to keep me away from it. There's this sort of, I don't know what you call it, certain age groups that aren't allowed to mix as such. So I haven't really done much T20 cricket before, but I went out there and we managed to get a couple of weeks in before COVID struck. But the competition's great. There is an awful lot of cricketing talent in Pakistan. There's a lot of pace bowlers coming through, all age sort of 20, 21, bowling at what we now have to describe as 145 Ks, as opposed to 90 miles an hour. And it was actually very, very interesting to do and great fun to be back in a commentary box. I can only apologise to my former employers at Sky for appearing on their box without notice. I'm sure they came up with strategies, but very nice to be back doing that. And just watching a bit of cricket.
We've missed you on the commentary.
I've missed me.
Okay, let's get off the subject of Pakistan because we don't want to talk about umpiring and things like that, do we, Gat?
No.
Let's move on.
Why not? Does Mike not have a point to make? It's improved, by the way.
No, the DRS system has been absolutely fantastic. It's one of the best inventions of all time. Sometimes I still wonder how they get it quite wrong, but there we are. But it's a fantastic system.
Does Shakor Rana does he send you a Christmas card?
Sadly, he departed in 2000.
Did he leave you anything in the will?
Not that I was aware of. I think my scrap of paper was still under his pillow at home, but the apology that was. But
he gave himself out in 2000. Well, there
sadly he did.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we talk about India, the Test series that's been going on recently, and plenty of action there. I don't know what you think about it. I seem to watch the first Test match where Atherton got Atherton. Joe Root got millions of runs and it was a proper Test match pitch, and then it all went sort of AWOL, didn't it?
It did.
Yes, in many ways predictable. It's just one of those things. We no doubt everyone's probably had enough of it in many, many ways talking about those pitches. I think to sum it up, I thought the third Test was appalling. The fourth Test was just an interesting pitch where the home side played much better and deserved to win. And likewise, after the first Test, where, as you rightly said, there was a pitch that did pretty much all the right things, started pretty flat, started to turn as it went on, and you got the advantage of batting first. I just think that third Test match pitch, they seem to have described now, or they've assessed it as, well, just about passable. I'm not sure about that. I thought it was a disgrace. But anyway, by the time we got to the fourth Test, it was slightly better, and by then I think those. The conditions told. I think confidence was low. I think you've got to look at two brilliant bowlers. Firstly, Ashwin, who we've seen for a good decade plus now, and this guy Axar Patel, who's come through and has enjoyed the perfect conditions to make your debut in as a left-arm spinner. Things will no doubt change for him elsewhere, but he is a fine bowler. So I think that the bigger problems are these. We have a sort of Lord's Taverners man in Zach Crawley, who I think is incredibly talented and will do well over the longer period, who had his moments, but will have learned good and bad from that experience in that month and a half in India. But those conditions, you have to somehow learn it over a period of time. And of course, modern tours, there's no interim period.
No warm-up matches.
To test. There's nothing. You can't go to Jamshedpur and play
or
East
Nagpur
or Nagpur or
indoor
or Gwalior or Pune or
Pune
you
was
don't go
flat.
to those places. Well, Pune was flat. You can still get out. You can't go to these places and have a sort of bit of a net in the middle. You just go from trauma to trauma if it's going badly.
Yeah.
So that's the nature of modern touring. But I think a lot of those guys will have learned from it. But we've always known that apart from certain select tours, winning in India is a tough thing.
Oh, well done, Captain. Brilliant.
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Well done, Skip.
Couldn't have done it without the vice captain getting all those runs as well.
Okay, listen, we'll come back to this year in a minute, because while you've taken us back to 84, 85, Chennai, Madras then, not quite the same sort of pitch that they prepared this time, but Gat, your 200 there was incredible. In fact, between the three of us on the screen, of the 640 runs we made, I was pleased to make a contribution. I scored 3 in that innings. I think 15 or something. So we were just pleased to be part of that monumental score.
I remember taking an executive decision as captain to slip myself down the order to let the specialist pinch hitters get in. So at a crucial time, after Gatting and Fowler had scored, 400 between them.
I'm interested to hear, Gat. I seem to remember you were on about 190, and your next 8 runs were both scored with reverse sweeps.
Yeah, it got a bit difficult because Ravi Shastri had 7 on the leg side, and Andy was bowling left arm wide outside leg stump, and there wasn't really many options to get runs because it was quite difficult. But no, I decided that they had a sort of a mid-off and a point, and there was nobody really behind there. So it just seemed the obvious thing. I was tired. We'd been out there a long time. It was hot. It was wet. I just thought, well, sod it. If I get a bat on it somewhere, it's away from the fielders on the leg side, and so I played it. I didn't try and hit it too hard. I just got a bat on it, and it managed to go the right place twice. So it was a nice way to sort of get through the nervous 90s and just nudge one to sort of extra cover after that, and off we went. But it was I have to say, it was a special time because I know Foxy was not the sort of didn't have a lot of muscle or fat on the body, whereas I was okay. But him being out there for sort of 8 or 9 hours, he didn't have much to sort of rely on. And I remember after the first day that he batted, which was the second day that we'd been, he just looked absolutely knackered. I mean, he just didn't look like he could, carry the bat off, let alone anything else. But I was fortunate. I'd only sort of got out there just before tea time, I think, so I was quite fresh. But just batting in those conditions was just incredible. You were changing gloves every sort of half an hour. You're having drinks breaks every half an hour, and the field placings in the bowling. It was testing, but it was a wonderful experience, and just to sort of be a part of something that was quite special, because you don't often sort of sit down at a team meeting and sort of say, well, of course, we'll bowl them out for whatever, we'll then get 600, then bowl them out again, which is what we did. But it doesn't often go like that. But that was a captain giving the team talk. And I think I do remember, actually, in the second innings, when Mr. Azharuddin was getting 100 and something, I remember David, we were discussing about whether he should take the new ball or not. And Percy Pocock was bowling, and I said, surely we've got to take the new ball, Skip. Come on, let's get on with it. And I think then the very next over, he didn't. Percy got Azhar out, I think, caught Silly off or something stupid. But he'd got 150 by that time. But that was a crucial decision, and then the seamers came on and knocked the tail over. But it was...
Just to say, I relied, obviously, Mike as my vice captain was a source of invaluable advice. Chris, just to put the whole thing in perspective, as my best mate, who we managed to sort of shoehorn on the tour.
Short leg was required.
Well, we needed a middle order batsman, someone who could reliably bowl 3 or 4 overs of medium pace, somewhere in the middle, and field short leg for a couple of days per test match. And Chris, that famous piece of advice you gave me in Delhi, which we managed to win to get back to 1-1 in that series, when we walked out after lunch, wasn't it? And we had that sort of conversation. Maybe you should have had it during lunch, but I said to you, what do you reckon? Should we bowl pace or spin? And you said, I think pace, captain. So we rolled the spin and we got Capel out. So it's it's one of the great lessons of captaincy. You have to somehow trust your own instincts. You're allowed to ask questions of those around you.
Right. Talking of questions, and get the subject off me. We've got 2 questions for you. One, I don't know who wants to answer it first, but do you think it's fair that we go to a country where we go 1-0 up in the test series and they doctor the pitch, if you can use that word, doctor the pitch, where it's an absolute minefield to get them 1-1? We then have another complete, not a great pitch to go 2-1 up. So the question is, do you think countries should be able to doctor their pitches to that extent?
I think the key words to that are to that extent, because to the extent of, for instance, test match number 3, the first in Ahmedabad, that was beyond, I think, a reasonable extent. And it just seems that the match referee, who just happens to be Javagal Srinath, didn't mark it down enough to ruffle any feathers. So I think there is a limit to everything. But actually, I read Michael Atherstone in the Times yet again, who is just excellent. Michael is my absolute go-to for sane, sober thinking on all these issues. And they put an article in the Times which pointed out quite rightly that, yes, you can go to India and find turning tracks and they will find spinners who know how to exploit it. They can come here and we can leave grass on. And the sort of perception seems to be that if you have a turning track, it is something to be criticized. And if you have a seaming track, a grassy track, it's just something that's, should we say, the quote is challenging. So for instance, when India come to us this summer, for instance, if any of the groundsmen decide to leave a bit of grass on, it looks a bit green, and the ball does things, and the seamers come into play, is that us potentially playing to home advantage with the likes of Broad, Anderson, Wood, Wokes, whoever? That's
Archer.
Archer, yeah, it's not bad. Using a bit of home advantage,
and then we'll get bowled out by Bumrah.
Well, exactly. India also have a pretty good, Bumrah, Bhuvneshwar Kumar, so the Kumars at number 42, they're pretty good too. India at the moment are a very strong side because they have wonderful batting, they have very good seam bowling and wonderful spinners. So, they're a very good all-round side. And in fact, when it comes to the World Test Championship final against New Zealand, which I assume will be played at the Ageas Bowl on just a good pitch, one that might actually conform to the template we all love, which is a bit of something for the pace bowlers early, a bit of something for the batsmen in the middle, and a bit of something maybe for the spinners later. If they can produce that sort of pitch, that'll be a fantastic game because you've got 2 sides with strength in pretty much all departments. It's a great question because I just think it was all exaggerated so much, both the criticism, but also that that one particular pitch, the 3rd Test pitch, where it just went too far.
I'd agree with that. I mean, I still think that at the end of the day, they had the best spinners, and we didn't pick the right sides on a couple of occasions either. And it's interesting. You look at their batting lineup; they struggled as well on the pitches. To be fair, against what I would say were lesser bowlers than Axer turned out to be, and obviously Ravi Ashwin, who's just a tremendous bowler. So. There's a guy called Washington as well, Washington Sundar, who bowled some pretty decent balls as well. When somebody like Joe Root gets 5 for 8 in a test match, I mean, that says that the wicket might be slightly less good than he should have. But at the same time, you've got to say it's the same for both sides. And they had the better spinners, and they made us look a little bit less good than we should have done. And it wasn't. The 3rd one wasn't a particularly good pitch. The other 2 were manageable at times. But you remember, we got out to a lot of balls that didn't turn. almost in one of the test matches. I mean, and I just think it got to people's heads a little bit. They sort of were playing for that one that's going to keep turning all the time, and you know, I just think because it is about the way you're thinking about how you're going to play it, and actually I think we probably got a little bit too much. Well, we probably got it wrong, to be fair, but you know, so did their batsmen. Their batsmen didn't fare too well either, but without doubt they had the two best spinners who were much more consistent, and we picked the wrong sides.
But linked to that as well, Gat, there's a question here from Jeff, a Taverner Jeff from Scotland, who wants to know whether you've got any thoughts on whether we should change the way the toss is operated.
Not at all.
You look at the T20 games at the moment, you win the toss, you probably win the game. Do you think in a test match, you should change the rules?
Not at all. No, I think, look, if you want to be the best test team in the world, you've got to learn to play on all surfaces. And let's take out the third test match. That wasn't very good. But you've got to learn to play, you've got to pick the right side, and you've got to be able to play on both surfaces. You know, the West Indies team and the Australian teams of the sort of 80s and 90s, 70s, 80s and 90s, they all managed to win on pitches like that, even slow turners that the West Indies bowlers had to face, and they won test matches. I suspect you could say the times of things have changed or whatever, but if you want to be the best test team in the world, you've got to learn to play on both pitches, and that's why India are now becoming, you know, just a magnificent team. Full stop, because they have the seam bowlers to actually back up their spinners, and
they won in Australia,
and they won in Australia, and you've got to say, and I think Joe Root handled it very well out there, to be fair, and I think I totally agree with Gow about Athers. Athers gives you a positive thing. The toss has always been there. The toss is something that is a part of the game. We tried it in the county championship, didn't we, by saying that if you went away, you know, you had the choice in April or May or whatever to actually say, well, if we want to bowl first, we can, so we don't bother tossing up, just to stop trying to get green pitches. And to a degree, you know, our own system, it didn't work. And our own system itself, rather than trying to produce, you know, we don't see turning pitches in the UK anymore. We haven't for many years. And as soon as we start having turning pitches down at Somerset, everybody starts jumping up and down. Now, admittedly, they went too far in probably one of them. But, you know, once people get on turning pitches in the UK and playing county, you hardly see a spinner. Now, fortunately, there seems to be a few coming on now, but we don't produce the pitches. We don't play at the right time of the year anyway, because we're down at September and April and May. So you're just not going to get the spinners. So we've sort of got ourselves into a situation where we don't see the spinners. David and myself and you, we all played against two spinners in county championships all the time, in all the teams. And David had a wonderful captain up at Leicester, Mr. Illingworth, who managed to get green in the middle and turn at the ends, as did Mr. Rice at Trent Bridge when he had Hadley and Hemmings and others. So they were good cricket pitches. And if you had a good side, you had a chance of winning. So I just think sometimes we've made certainly a little bit of a rod for our own back here by having, you know, pitches that don't turn as much and they don't encourage spinners. And yet we're playing 4-day cricket where you would have thought they should play a part. So I just think, you know, you've got to look at it from that side. And I have to say, I thought Joe Root did magnificently, and I think Athers has been writing some really good stuff. And I just think, you know, we should take stock and say, we didn't pick the right sides. We didn't have the best spinners, and they bowled a little better than we did. And end of story. Put it in the book, and just hopefully learn from that, and just remember. And then it's up to us to decide how we want to take our cricket when we play it over here. Really.
Liver, do you want to add to it, or should we move on to the women?
Ooh, no, as you put it like that.
I want to tell you, no.
Who have you got in mind?
I'll tell you exactly. The England women winning in New Zealand. Had an amazing tour down there. Really exciting. I was excited to see Tammy Beaumont do so well. We know her really well from down here. And Heather Knight has signed up for our Runs for Change program and everything. And it's nice to see that they're really doing well, aren't they?
Well, yeah. The resources allocated to England's women now are infinitely greater than they were a decade ago. and the progress they've made. I mean, it's interesting because, again, just referring back to my little time in Pakistan, there is now going to be a huge imbalance in world women's cricket between the countries that are happy and willing and able to allocate resources to their players and those that aren't. So the England women's team has had this attention given to it. It's had money given to it. They're now professionals. They now spend, they're now full-time players, which is fantastic. And the results are there to see. The Aussies are good. The Kiwis are a good side, a tough side to beat. They've had some wonderful players. So you're going to have this sort of polarization where the sides that are looked after properly will get better naturally, and the sides that don't have those resources allocated will struggle. So, for instance, Pakistan is the example. They've got lots of talent in that country, but they don't see it in the same way. To be blunt about it, they don't promote it in the same way. So, for instance, Heather Knight knows that she has a side that will train hard, work hard, play hard, as all international sides do nowadays, and she will get results from that. And they've got a very good attitude, and they've got some very skillful, very good players. So, it is onwards and upwards for the girls.
Yeah, and I think the ICC have realised that in order to actually make sure the game keeps growing and keeps developing, certainly from the associate countries and even some of the ones like South Africa, Pakistan, West Indies, who don't get a huge amount of support from their governing bodies. And in order for the game to get better and improve and develop, they're going to have to put some more money into it. Speaking from my sort of fortunate position of being chairman of the MCC World Cricket Committee, we have Susie Bates on our committee, who's the New Zealand captain and is a very fine player. And she's saying that, it's interesting that the three top teams, which would be England, Australia, New Zealand, they get support from their countries, but the rest don't. And it's surprising in India, they're starting to accept that the Indian women, who obviously played that wonderful cup final against England not so long ago, they're getting the support now. But the other countries behind them there, and certainly some of the developing countries, just not getting the support. So the thing that it needs now is more support from the ICC. They have included more associate teams in the next, I think, World T20. They're putting a number of teams in, but teams like Hong Kong, Taiwan, will get in there, and maybe Thailand is another up and coming team. China whether they're going to quite make it or not. So there are teams out there that are about, but they're just going to need the money and support. And I think certainly with the top sort of 8 teams, the likes of sort of South Africa, West Indies, Pakistan, there should be an amount of money that is just put aside for women's cricket if they really truly want this game to expand, develop, and be a contest between all the top nations at this moment in time, and also allow some developmental money to go to the other teams to support them to grow.
Interesting stuff. We've got time just for one question. There've been lots, but unfortunately we don't have time. Ian Martin wants to know, Simon Wilde wrote a piece in the Times the other day suggesting that red ball cricket needs to accept it. It's had its day. Do you agree? It's a good one for 2 of our finest ever Test players.
Dear.
Yeah, well, Simon is a great friend of mine, lives in the same village, and I used to work for the Sunday Times under his guidance for a good decade plus. It's a provocative point, but there is a horrible truth to it, that if you look at the way Test cricket is treated around the world, I mean, part of this is in response, I think, to England allegedly, because I won't say it's necessarily true, but allegedly sort of putting Test cricket slightly to one side with the rotation policy, focusing on the one-day side. You've got a full-strength one-day side and a Test team that 4 Test matches. It was a bit of a sort of lottery as to which names came out the hat, or which names had gone home, or which names were on a plane, or it's. And I disagreed with that. I mean, there were so many sort of blatant examples. Joss Butler. Okay, Joss is involved in so much stuff. You cannot expect him to be in a bubble for month after month after month. It's just inhumane. But he goes home after 1 Test match. Johnny Bairstow in Sri Lanka gets runs, looks in great form, goes home for a bit of preordained rest, comes back and gets 3 ducks. You want to make runs while you're in form. And I still think that players will rate themselves as to how they play in Test match cricket. You know, they're in their dying days, they'll say, yes, I got X thousand Test match runs. I was very proud of that. And someone will say, what about your IPL? What about your ODIs? What about your international T20? I say, well, yes, I quite enjoyed all that. It was great and I earned a lot of money, but I have no idea about the stats. So there's still that attitude, I'm sure, amongst the players. And when India were in this country 2 or 3 years ago now, and Virat Kohli was promoting Test cricket, I thought that was brilliant. Brilliant. Because he has so much influence, you know, with that nation, which is very much at the forefront of world cricket, with its massive audience. If Virat Kohli says Test cricket is important, then 1 billion people will believe him. And I think it needs that sort of PR to keep it going. But we've had some seriously good Test cricket over the last, not just over the last couple of years. There have been some absolute highlights. And what I think is good for Test cricket is that the skills are now transferable. So just to use the obvious example of Ben Stokes at Headingley against the Aussies, that was 2 different innings. There was a very solid Test match innings where he blocked it, survived, blocked it. And then at the end of it, the only reason England won that Test match, and he got those runs in the way he did, is because he transferred T20 skills to the end of a Test match innings. So there is that possibility for crossover and transfer. And that's the sort of thing which, if the players can produce it, you can't do that every game. But if players can produce that sort of thing in Test match circumstances, on a 4th or 5th day, then Test cricket is certainly not dead. But yes, the big problem is that there aren't now enough days in the year, and we're seeing that because, of course, having put 2 more Test matches into our summer schedule against New Zealand late in the day, against a very good side, that we now know that England's IPL players, if they're stood in the final rounds of the IPL, won't be in those Test matches. Likewise, a couple of New Zealanders, Bolt for one, those sort of people might not be there either. So that is the worry when Test cricket comes second to, should we call it, other stuff.
Yeah. A quick word, Gat, on that. You're obviously a great Test supporter. Do you see England playing Australia at Lords in 50 years?
In 50 years, will we be here in 50 years? I don't know. I would say, I would like to think yes. You keep still hearing from players, and just recently, I think one of the lads from Afghanistan, the captain there, said how great Test cricket was. They'd won a Test match, and he just said, this is where the young kids learn their game, and they learn about themselves, etc., and then they go and play the other stuff, which is fine, but they need that grounding first. But as I say, I think I don't know what's going to happen. We have a new chairman at the ICC, Greg Barclay from New Zealand. They seem to have run their cricket for a team that wasn't really concentrating on Test cricket. They seem to have got an awful long way up the ladder for some reason or other, and they've done really well. So I don't know. There might be some different thinking elsewhere, but we must keep promoting Test cricket. If we keep promoting all the IPL like we do, it's no wonder everybody knows IPL's on, this is on, that's on. Let's promote Test cricket equally and see what happens. The crowds weren't too bad in the Test matches that we saw at Ahmedabad and Madras. So, look, I think it's a wonderful game, but I'm a cricketer. I just think it's just so interesting, and the Test matches have been some wonderful Test matches, for a long time now. And as I say, I just hope that they promote it. And they find a space for it. They found a space for the T20. Yeah. Let's maybe find a space for a couple of months where just Test cricket's played, and try and work out the program.
I think we're all agreed on that, and it's good to have the final word on Test cricket. Thanks for being with us tonight, and sorry to have kept you from your evening dinner. And I'm sure 8 o'clock will be just about okay for you. Thanks, and our president's going to round it off in a few minutes' time, I think. But in between now and then, it's been a very tricky year, of course, for everybody, and a really difficult times for our charity. So what a good time to hear from our chairman of the Lord's Taverners, Tim Lucas, going to give us a little update. Hi, Tim.
Good evening, Chris. Thank you very much for hosting this evening. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us this evening. I hope, like me, you've enjoyed everything we've done so far this evening. Before I kick off and give you a more general update, I thought it would be helpful to just introduce you to Nick. You'll have seen that Nick's taken over as our interim chief exec, and I think it's helpful for you to be able to see the man and hear the voice behind what's going on of a lot of the things at the moment. So I'll just quickly hand over to Nick.
Thank you, Tim. And what a great conversation that was, and what fun to hear all those thoughts. I'm really delighted to be a part of Lord's Taverners, albeit for a fairly brief period, really, interlude between your permanent chief execs. But I have been massively impressed with the work. I don't think anybody could have listened to Nauman and Rohan earlier on this evening and failed to be impressed with their first-hand stories of the difference that Taverners is making on the ground. And that's one of the things that drew me to the organisation for this brief period. I'm also really impressed with the heritage of the Taverners and what membership means, the kind of depth of commitment, and what the club means. And of course, there's a fantastic team at the head office, which I'm very proud to be leading, already delivering a lot of success. The membership efforts are fantastic. It's been a really bumpy 2020. There's no denying that, really. You can't get away from it. It's been very difficult for Taverners on all kinds of different levels. But I'm very pleased to be part of kind of getting us finding our mojo again and getting back up to speed for 2021. It looks like a really good year ahead. It was great to hear Tracy and Ed talking about the events upcoming, and I think we're all thinking hard about innovation in the head office and what it takes to innovate around some of these really successful income streams to support the work. So I'm delighted to be here. I'll be here probably till June, July or something like that, depending on the appointment schedule for the incoming chief exec. And I'm learning a lot and bringing everything that I can from my background in the charity sector. It's a delight to be here. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you very much, Nick. That's very helpful. So I just really wanted to cover off a few bits. So before we look forward, I think it's appropriate for us to look back. And I just really wanted to thank Alan Wright. You will have seen recently that Alan stepped down as the chair of the Membership and People Committee. Thank you ever so much to Alan for all the time that you've committed, the passion that you gave to the Lord's Taverners whilst you were chair of the committee. So thank you ever so much for all of that. And also at the same time to welcome Bernie Watson, who's agreed to take over as the chair. Bernie already sat on the Membership and People Committee, so it's great that he's agreed to take over. One of the other things that you'll probably have heard us talk about in the past is one of the challenges around what is it to be a Lord's Taverner? What does it mean? What's the club ethos? And Bernie's agreed to chair the subcommittee that's being set up with a number of our members that have agreed to help. And we look to them to give some sort of consideration. And I think it's one of those questions and problems that we've all been grappling with to understand what it is and what should we be and what it represents to be a Lord's Taverner. So I wish Bernie the best of luck. I'm sure he'll do an incredible job. So thank you for taking that on. And also his committee members and the new subcommittee that's looking at club ethos. A lot of very well-known, respected members that have agreed to be part of that as well. So we look forward to that going forward. Nick touched very briefly there upon his tenure with us as the interim chief exec. You will have, I'm sure most of you or some of you will have seen that we advertised for the new chief exec position. That process, they closed just over nearly 2 weeks ago now. We have had some meetings with the recruitment consultants that are helping us with the process, and we've had a very, very good response with regard to the quality and the breadth and skills of people that have expressed an interest. So the process is going very smoothly. We're now at that point where we're doing the first stage interviews, which we will take forward as quickly as we can. And as soon as we can give you an update, obviously we will do as to how that progresses. Other quick thing to really mention, again, we are very much bound by the government restrictions around what we can and can't do. Thankfully, we've started to think about reintroducing our programs. And like everybody else, I'm sure it's just so impressive to hear Rohan and Newman talk about wickets and Super Ones and what we're doing for the young people that we support. Incredible. So the quicker we can get everything back up and running again, I think and helping the young people we support will be just amazing. Table cricket guidance notes went out to schools last week following an update from the government. And we just keep watching what the government says and does, and obviously the ECB guidelines that apply to us as well with regards to cricket. So as soon as we can get our programs up and running across the country, we will do so. It's important for us. And I think we all would have taken away from this evening how much of a difference the Lord's Taverners makes to so many young people across the country, and trying to also imagine, I'm sure like everybody else, being stuck at home has been difficult for us over the last 12 months, but trying to do that perhaps from a disadvantaged background or indeed have a disability, it's going to be hard for us to imagine how those people have had to cope with the last 12 months. So I can't really praise them enough for everything that we've been doing to try and make a difference. The other thing I really wanted to also highlight, it's been mentioned a couple of times before, but please, if you get the chance to go to our website, literally the first thing that you'll see when you go to our page is our impact report. And as Pete mentioned earlier on, the fact that despite everything that happened in 2020, we still managed to support 12,000 young people across the country during the year, which is more people than we've ever done in the past, which is just an amazing effort and a tribute to how everybody is working so hard, supporting all the programs that we do at a local level as well as sort of back in HQ. So please, I mean, there are some really moving stories, and it really does hit home to you why we do this. Why are we all here? Why are we a Lord's Taverner? Well, we're here because we want to make a difference. We want to change the lives of the young people we try and help. I also want to thank the team in HQ, because all of this stuff that you see, the content that's presented to you, whether it's the stories, the photos on the website, or the video links that you can click through to see, that content is all created by us, by the guys and girls that are working in HQ. So we got some phenomenal, really talented people that can create this amazing content. So please, it would take you 10-15 minutes, but I would really like you to just take the time to go through and look at the impact report, and you can get a true feel for what we are able to achieve. Ed and Tracy talked about events. I think quite naturally, given the uncertainty around what the future might hold, I suspect most people will be thinking about things later in the summer and autumn time, but we will try and come out and confirm as many things as we can that we are able to confirm. So I know there's been a lot of work done around some of our typical summer events, which, because they're outdoors, will probably mean they can be held without there being too many restrictions. So cricket fixture list and golf days and other things are like that, fingers crossed, should take place during the summer. And it would be just so nice to see as many of you as possible come along to support those games and do what taverners do. I mean, that's what it's all about for being a Lord's Taverner, is meeting our friends, having the opportunity to catch up, supporting the matches, and ultimately just having some fun, which is what it is to be a taverner, isn't it? Have some fun. There's also been talk this evening. Ed and Tracy provided some really helpful updates in terms of the regions. Again, it's been really difficult for the regions, and I just want to thank everybody out in the regions, because you've been stuck in limbo as much as anybody has because of the inability to do the things that we traditionally do. Ed mentioned that one of the things that we've introduced, and all the trustees were very keen to do, is to have what Eddie described as a buddy on the trustee board. And this is a commitment from the trustees that we really want to help. We're not trying to suggest that we're going to come up with the answers, but we're there as another sort of sounding board if you want to talk. Ed and Tracy and Maria and the team in HQ will be your day-to-day contacts, and they'll be the ones that will be doing a lot of the work with you guys. But we want to try and show you that we're as committed to supporting the regions as we ever can be. So from my perspective, thank you everybody in the regions that's gearing up, looking forward to the summer and hopefully getting back doing the things that we want to do. On a more admin type basis, at some point, probably in the next week to 10 days, you'll get a pack. It might be 2 weeks actually. You'll be getting a pack through from us, which will give you formal notice of the general meeting, which we are looking to hold on the 29th of April. In terms of the timelines and the restrictions that are in place, we're not expecting and we have planned that we won't be able to physically hold a general meeting whilst we can all gather together. So it will be an online event. Everybody will get an invitation. Everybody will be able to participate, whether it is through Zoom or if they're not able to join us, there will be a couple of resolutions that we'll ask everybody to consider. You can vote either through the online portal that we've made available, or you can give your proxy for somebody else to vote on your behalf in order for us to consider those resolutions. Now, those resolutions themselves, we think it's appropriate to spend some time talking about why we are proposing the changes that we are. So you will have noticed on the email that you received for this evening, it talks about having another members meeting on April the 15th. And that will be an evening that we will be available to take questions on the resolutions that we're asking you to vote upon, and also any other sort of issues that you want to talk about. So it's very much a members evening about what we're doing, why we're doing it. And hopefully after you've had the opportunity to listen to us, ask our questions, you'll feel in a better position to be able to respond to those resolutions and what we're proposing. That's all I really had to cover off from an admin perspective. I wanted to thank everybody that's taken time this evening to help us with this evening. It's been lovely to have so many positive stories. It's been great to also hear from Chris and David and Mike some reflections on cricket past and present. And again, for me, it's about having fun, isn't it? That's what we're Lord's Taverners. We want to have fun. And it's just nice to be able to have a chuckle and listen to the stories and have some fun this evening. So thank you, David, for taking the time to join us, and Chris for agreeing to host. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Tim, for that comprehensive update. That was terrific. Thank you. And just to really round it up for this evening, it's been a very, very difficult time for the charity and for our members. And one of the casualties, of course, is our president, who we've not been able to see at events. And it was so exciting when I heard he'd taken on the role as president, and we just haven't had any events for him to pitch up at. But a few words, I think, from our president.
All right, Chris, thank you. Yes, you're absolutely right. And we mentioned it during our little chat earlier. It has been completely uneventful for the last, well, far too many months, apart from those few cricket games that Mike and I were able to get to and enjoy and feel the camaraderie, which is very much the hallmark of Taverners. We've not even been able to have the traditional passing of the buck ceremony from previous outgoing president to current president. So if Sir Trevor is still, if he's not busy traveling the world doing documentaries, at some stage we need to grab him to pass that infamous dollar bill so that the buck can indeed pass from him to me, and we can get on with the job of promoting Taverners. But firstly, what I want to say is this. Listening to everything that's been going on tonight, it's hugely encouraging to see the fact that the work goes on. The fact that Taverners was in a very strong position when the pandemic struck, I think, is a credit to all those who've been involved for so long now. And I'd like to mention Paul Robin, because it was Paul that got me back into the Taverners. I've been a member for something like 40 years now, give or take. And it's only the last few years again that I've got more active out at functions, out the rest of it. And it's through Paul's involvement there that I came back in. So thanks to him, this progression has become a very natural one, a very easy one, a very pleasant one. So I want to wish him well and thank him for all the work he put in. And of course, we look forward to that process taking place, whereby we end up with a new chief executive in due course and soon enough. But it's not just the one man that does all this. As we've heard from plenty of people tonight about the efforts put in by hundreds of people, from those in the offices to those around the regions to those who volunteer to help out on each and every day. So I want to add my thanks for their efforts to keep the Taverners going in the way that we've all become accustomed. And yes, it is about now looking forward to the future. As best we can, we look forward to the events, the big events that, of course, are both fun, as Tim was saying, you know, so the ethos of Taverners being fun and frolics, but with a very serious purpose underlying it. We need those big events to raise the big money, need to get the money back into the coffers again, and we need to get everyone who's been involved with the Taverners for so long, as it were, fully functioning, fully fit and firing. And that's a great aim, but we know the basis is there. We know the basis is strong. And so it won't take too much, I am sure, for our great team to get things rolling again. And I am so looking forward to that first event, where I'll probably call upon Chris to chair it or, you know, host it or whatever it might be, because he does it so well. But just so looking forward to that first big event where we can suddenly feel as though the Taverners are fully back on track. But I've got the cricket days in the diary for this coming summer as best I can. And whatever else comes up, I promise I will do my utmost to be with you all as and when I possibly can. But thank you so much for all your efforts, and let's have a great year.
Well, President, thank you very much for those positive words. It's just what we needed to round up this show. We're all in the same boat here, trying to give our young children, our young people, disadvantaged and disabled young people, a real sporting chance. So thanks for that, and thanks to Gat as well for coming on. And I hope all you members who've taken the time to support this evening have enjoyed it. I hope that it's opened everybody's eyes to the fact that the Lord's Taverners is really up and running and live and kicking. So thanks very much for being part of it. I hope you've enjoyed it.